Hey guys, what is up? Today we're going to be building out a end-to-end booking system, essentially which can be used by a few different businesses, but any business which essentially sells a space and access to that space. For example, maybe a music venue, maybe a wedding planner, for example, if they own the venue as well. And first thing we're going to do is walk through the structure of that system. We're going to be using Airtable, make.com for the orchestration between PandaDoc as well as Stripe. Now you can kind of swap in those two tools for anything. So for example, we could change Stripe for QuickBooks. We could also change it for Xero, any sort of invoicing or financial platform which gives you the ability to create invoices. Same thing with PandaDoc. We could swap that in for DocuSign, Signwell. We could even swap it out for Google Docs if we wanted to go for more a simpler approach. Cool. So let me go through the data structure. Let's start with our customer. So there's a few things we're going to be capturing. First name, last name, email, billing email. This is where we want to be sending our invoices. And next thing is venue. So the kind of business could have different venues. We need to take that into account. So we've got rooms and addresses in this table. Next thing, we've got rooms. You can see that's linked to venue. And essentially these are the rooms or specific spaces within a venue that can be rented out. Only field on that is capacity for the moment. Cool. Now let's talk about our actual bookings or shows. So a show is an individual day or an individual booking. So a booking can have multiple shows. Hope that kind of makes sense. So I can make a booking over multiple days, or shows over multiple days, or events over multiple days. You wouldn't kind of invoice this, or you wouldn't invoice this separately unless you wanted to. And you can see on our show we've got date, venue, start time, end time, and priority as well, because we could learn about a show or an event. Someone could get in contact, we could put in the calendar, and we could kind of see, essentially, is that available? We could choose between different customers. And then in bookings, obviously, we've got our shows, the actual price of the booking, and then linking that to our invoice, our contract, which we've got down here. They're in separate tables. Invoices, again, linked to the booking, the link to that external invoicing platform. We're going to use Stripe. And then we've also got contracts for the link, and then obviously the booking. How we're going to build this out is essentially what's going to happen is, and we're going to create a booking, set the price, trigger the creation of a contract, which the client is then going to receive. When they sign that, we're going to trigger the creation of a invoice. And if we have time, we're going to essentially link it up so the invoice status kind of syncs back to our system. Cool. Let's get into it. Let's hop into Airtable. What I'm going to do is just literally generate the basic structure using, I forgot what this guy's name is. He's that bad. I want you to generate the following tables. Generate a customer table with the following fields: first name, last name, email, and billing email. Next, to generate a venue table with the following fields: rooms and address. The next, generate a rooms table, which is going to be linked to our venues table, which has the field capacity. Next, I want you to generate a show table, which has the following fields: date, venue, start time, end time, and priority. Priority is a single select field. Next, I want you to generate a contracts table with the following fields: contract link, and a link to our bookings table. Next, I want you to create an invoices table, which again is linked to our bookings table and has a link. has a link field as well, which we're going to call invoice link. Next, our bookings table, which is connected to shows. It's got a price field. It's connected to invoices, and it's connected to contracts. Cool. Let's see how Omni does with this. Just gonna double check everything that's okay. It lets me click out. There we go. I hardly use Omni. I would actually prefer to use Claude and pause while we wait for Omni. Okay, so we've generated our table structure. So I'm just gonna have a little look and just clean up anything generated by Omni. So what I'm gonna do is add a full name field here. Just gonna say concatenate the first name and last name. And then we're just gonna make that the primary field. There we go. Everything else looks clean. Venues. I've also seeded some kind of test records. That all looks good. Rooms, capacity, shows, as you can see. What I just set up as well is within our room, we only want to be able to select rooms from a specific venue when we're creating a new show. So I've just set up this filter record where we're saying we can only select a room where the venue within this record already has or we can only select a room where that room has a venue which we've already selected in our venue field for this record, as you can see here. Cool, we got some start times, some priorities. That's all good. I'm just gonna set these. And then bookings, I'm just gonna delete these for now. And then we've got contracts as well. Got the contract link, the booking, same thing, I'm gonna delete it. And then invoices, which is pretty much the same thing. I'm actually gonna add one more table. I'm just gonna add a logs table. This is gonna become important when we are creating our automations. I'm just gonna add a date. Call it timestamp. Time. Let's go European for the win. And just delete these seed records and go. I'm gonna call single select. I can tell it. We're just gonna make that success. Or I spelled failure right there. That looks wrong. Cool. Cool. I'm just gonna link that as well to our contract. These are essentially the main two tables which are gonna have logs, since those are the main two tables which are gonna be involved within our automation. There we go. Let me just change this to turn off allow linking multiple records. Nice. I'm just going to delete the seed table. And now we have a pretty strong data structure. What I'm going to do is start building out some of the forms and interfaces. We haven't named our base yet. Let's call it home. We're going to start off with a list, and we're just going to make a list of our customers. Same thing, but now we're just going to make a list of, let's have a look. We're going to go with shows. And then finally, we're going to go for bookings for now. Cool. Let's start with customers. What do we actually want to see? I'm going to remove the first name and the last name. Literally just a simple list, just like that. And then for the record detail, we might want to actually see all the bookings under a specific customer. So what I'm going to do is go into our customers, and we actually don't have any, we haven't created the link between our customers and bookings. See there, we've got one now. Now when I go back, I can add this bookings view, and I'm going to make it a view. We're just going to leave that for now. Next are shows. Now, what I'm actually going to do is actually change this to not a gallery, a calendar view, since that's actually going to be a little bit more useful, as you can see there. Let's color it by our priority, because right now they don't look that great. It's a lot better. You can see. What I'm actually going to do as well is change. We've got venue, room, booking. Be alright, actually. Okay, cool. Now, when we open a show, what do we actually want to see? Date, venue, room. Is there anything else that we want to see? Start time, end time. We've already got that. But we kind of want to see the start time and end time by themselves. What I'm going to do is just create a formula field which just shows the start time and end time by itself, or the start time. from the start time, just show the start time by itself. Oops. Okay, capitals. Start time only. Some of these fields are kind of redundant. Now I'm just going to duplicate this. Edit the field. Call it end time. And then just change that to end. Cool. Nice. Okay, now within this kind of view, we want to be able to actually create shows. So I want to add the ability to open our record creation font. And obviously it's going to be shows, wherever that is. It. Cool. We've got the date, venue, room, the start time and the end time, the priority. And then we're just going to remove bookings. That's something we do later on. Notice if I select Grand Hall, I'm only able to select a Grand Hall room. So that's good. I wonder if we can add a default value. No, we can't. Just going to make a few fields required. And that is our show form right there. Cool, let's move on to bookings. Bookings, again, what I'm going to do is actually start off with a Kanban view. If I navigate over to our bookings, we've got our booking name. However, I don't have any booking statuses, essentially. So I'm going to add a single select field for status. And kind of our booking stages, let's say our contract created, contract signed, it's paid, And then you could have event complete. And that would be essentially when all the events, the shows have passed. Green. Cool. All right, cool. Now our stacking field, like we just selected, is going to be contract created, contract signed, invoice created, invoice paid, booking complete. I think if I look in here, we actually have non-categorized. So what I'm going to do is build out the booking form similar to our shows. And again, similar process. Set the titles, add booking, set the booking name, and we select our shows. And then we're going to select our price. Contracting and invoicing are relevant for this form, so we're just going to remove those. Of course, we got to add our customer first and make sure that we can only have one of those on this record. So bookings can only have one customer. And then here's essentially where we would select the shows. Here's where we select the price. Let's have a look at the price. Okay, cool. I was just checking it's not a free text field. Let's add one more default field for when a booking is created. I'm just going to set it as booking created. Because we want contract to created essentially going to be our is what we're going to check our automation against when we are generating our contract. In fact, I'm going to remove this. We don't need to set the status ourselves. So it's the name, the show, the price, the customer. And yeah, that's about it. I'm going to hide the empty. Oh, yeah, we actually don't have any at the moment. So let's keep that for now. I'm just going to create a booking because I want to set how it actually looks when we open up our booking. So in terms of shows, I'd want that to be a view. It's going to let me. Nope. Do we want to see our customer? Want to see the price, the contract and invoice. We'd want to see that as well. And then obviously our status as well. I'm just going to remove shows from here since we have it in its own view. And then one thing I'm also going to add is Mm, oops. One thing I want to add is our logs. So what I'm going to do is, so there's two ways I can do this. Since I've added logs to to the specific contracts and invoices, there's two ways I could kind of do this. I can make bookings have their own logs. Uh, mm, okay, I know what I'm going to do. 1 second. Cool. What we're going to do is we're going to change our data structure. Instead of having linked fields on the contract and invoice, I'm just going to delete this linked field. And we're going to use a single text field instead. Be kind of denote what has happened. So we've got status, but we're also going to create a type. And it's literally just going to be this kind of makes our logs universal. So essentially now, if I go on, we're only going to attach booking logs to bookings. Oh, it was already there. My bad. Okay. All right, cool. Now that is essentially enough for now. Just going to pull this booking, add a nice emoji. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is set up our automations. What we want to do is whenever a booking is created, we want to generate a contract in PandaDoc using the info of that customer to just generate a document, send it over to their email. And we want to also poll for when they sign that contract and be able to trigger the creation of our invoice as well. Oops. Cool. So here I am in PandaDoc, guys, and I'm just creating a new template that we're going to use for our contract. Really basic. I'm just adding the fields, and then I'm going to add essentially a signature field. Literally just want to show the client first name, the shows, the email, and literally add a page break, and then add a signature. You drop that there. And that's basically everything I want to collect. Obviously, in a real contract, there'd be loads of more text about blah, blah, blah. We agreed to do this. We agreed to do that. But yeah, I'm just going to save that. Cool. So let's head into May.com. Now we want to trigger the creation of this contract when essentially our booking is created. So what we're going to do is set up a webhook to trigger that. I'm just going to call this new. I'm going to save that. Now we've got our URL. Now, essentially, we can trigger this from our automations within Airtable by going to automations. So what is the trigger that actually makes this? And I would say it's when a record matches a condition. Let me rename this. Generate contracts. Cool, we're going to go for bookings. So when the booking status is equal to booking created, what we want to do is run a script. And this script is essentially just going to send an HTTP request to this webhook and trigger our make.com scenario. Cool. So I've just pasted some of the code, which is going to run this. Really simple. We've got a webhook URL. And what we're going to do is just attach our record ID in that request. So we can use that in our scenario. What I'm going to do is copy that. Oopsie. Paste that here. I'm just gonna, it's listening already, so I'm just gonna trigger that. Test run successfully. Oh, let's try again. What I think is happening is we don't have a test. I'm gonna select a record to use. And there we go. Cool. I'm just going to add this input, the record ID, and that just essentially makes sure the record ID of the booking, which triggers this automation, is actually passed into our request. So if I run this module only, let me actually detect new values so it can get the data structure. I go boom. Nice. It's getting that record ID there. Cool. Let me just rename that. All right. So we've got that working within Airtable and make.com. Now, what I want to do is essentially test out my PandaDoc config as well. So next thing is we need to get the information using that record ID from Airtable. So we actually need to get that booking. A log basis. You can see that. Let's just use that existing data. So you can see we've been able to get that test booking. Cool. From here, since we have our booking, we essentially have all the information on that booking. What we need to do is actually get our customer data. So if you have a look here, you can see it gives us our booking name, ID. It doesn't give us much, basically. What I'm going to do is run this again and see if we get more information. Well, literally, we have no information, so that doesn't help. I'm just going to create a new customer. If we run that again, we should have some more information. So we've got our customer, what our shows. Now what we can do then is get our customer info, get our show info, and then use that to actually create our PandaDoc document. I'm going to rename this customer. And because we can have multiple shows, I'm actually going to use the search records. We're going to use the record ID from our get bookings. And then with shows, similar thing. I don't know why this is so short. Here we go. What we want to do is so the reason I want to get all the shows is I want to essentially be able to, in our template, show the dates of our shows for all the shows. So essentially I need to concatenate the shows. Instead of having to do this thing where I'm going to have to get all the shows, what I can do is on the booking record, I can just create a show summary. So to create that show summary, what I'm going to do is create the show summary in the shows table first. I'm just going to say concatenate the show name, venue, room, start time only, and end time only. Oops. Also add the date. Format the date a bit better, please. Yikes. Oh, cool. That's not too bad. I'll take it. Now my bookings, what I can do is create a rollout. Cool. So I've just created a roll up, just an already join with a new line character as the separator. So if I open that up, you can see we've got a somewhat clean show summary. And I can pull this into my make.com instead of having to search for the shows and do it in here. Cool. We've got our booking data, we've got our customer data, we've got our show data. Now, what we can do is create a document. We're just going to address it. So the document name is going to be the full name and then the booking name as well. Oh, that's the wrong one. We've set up that connection. Let's add our data now. Email, first name, last name, shows. It should be on our booking. We just might need to refresh. We save that. And here we go. You can see our show summary. It should show up here now. Nice. We've got our show summary. And let's just choose yes to send. My first name. Oops. Oh gosh, what's going on here? Okay, yeah. Please add your booking contract attached. And that should be it. I've received this email. I can open the document. And I can sign the contracts. Nice. Cool. I think all we're going to do is just test it end to end. So I'm just going to come into here, create a new booking. Add some shows. Price it. Should probably have our price in the contract as well. Just all about that, guys. Cool. Just created a new booking. Well, I'm expecting this to happen. Money.com scenario runs. Have I turned on my automation? I will turn on my automation. Cool. I need to turn on my automation for that to actually happen. Let's change this to contract created and then change it back. And that should re-trigger it. Yep, there we go. So I think I set it to an email. Cool. We've kind of established that the document creation works, but our scenario isn't finished. We need to essentially set feedback or make sure that our records Airtable are updated to kind of us to log this. So we've actually created a contract. We need to add the link and we also need to create logs. And we're just going to set it as the PandaDoc name. Link. The PandaDoc doesn't seem to be providing for us. We'll pause on that one. We'll link it to the booking. And then there's a stray logs for me to delete data. So what we're going to do is actually create the document and then get the link of the document afterwards. Was okay, guys, we have found the shared link. Here it is. So we've got name, recipient, we're linking our booking ID, and that's about it. Oh, now we also want to update the booking and mark it as contract created. You're going to link the contract we just created. And just log that as contract created. Final thing is probably to create our log. I'm going to set that to now. I'm going to mark that as a success. So I'm going to say booking created. Cool. So let's just make sure that if anything goes wrong with kind of the most crucial part of this scenario that we actually need to kind of save this. What we're going to do is set this as a retry, but we're also going to create a log of this record. Would prefer it to be validate. Okay, we're gonna have to do it like this. Just gonna set that as lock success. My scenario settings. Cool. Pretty happy with that. Next thing we're going to do is just set up the scenario for when the contract is actually signed. Let this, and we just want to update the booking. See if the record ID is in here now. Still hasn't updated. PandaDoc, we've got shows. Choose our venues, our rooms. Make that 6 in the morning. And priority. Add another show. Let's add that a bit later. But we can submit our shows. You can see. And what we can do from here is go into our bookings. Essentially create our booking. Add the specific shows. Set our price. Click create. And essentially what we've done is created a new booking where we can see the shows we've created. And we can just see that I've just created a contract now. Now, at the moment, I can't edit this, but let's just set that so it's editable. But I can open up this. review my contract with all my details, and then sign it. Cool. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and see you in the next part where we're going to go through updating when our contracts have been signed, and then essentially creating our invoices when that happens as well. Cheers. See you soon.